Welcome back here to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, live from Cam's Pizzeria. You're here with us right now on youtube.com/WakeUpCallDT, as well as WakeUpCallDT.com, and inside of Cam's Pizzeria, Lemoyne Plaza. With me right now, Pearl Washington, Syracuse Orange men's basketball. Great. We did a show before this, so you make sure you want to tune into that on WakeUpCallDT.com and the youtube.com/WakeUpCallDT channel. We were talking about Syracuse, Jim Boeheim, the press conference. We'll get back to some of that, but before we go there, one of the big things about Syracuse is losing 12 scholarships over 4 years. Everybody was worried about the class coming in, Malachi Richardson, Frank Howard, Tyler Lydon, Mustafa Zhang. None of them are going to be affected, and that's because they'd already signed their letters of intent, so can't really go after them. That's a big thing for Syracuse because obviously they wanted to keep what they had coming in, because in the next 4 years after this, it's going to be a little bit difficult. But two guys made it easy for Syracuse. You can have 13 scholarship players on your team in any given year. They have to get it down to 10. BJ Johnson decides he's going to transfer. Ron Patterson decides he's going to transfer instead of going into their third seasons with Syracuse. First and foremost, what did you think about BJ Johnson and Ron Patterson deciding to leave?
Well, I knew Ron Patterson was going to leave school too also. I had heard about that a little earlier. My goddaughter told me. If that's something that he wants to do, he had a good opportunity this year to play a lot of minutes, and he did play minutes and he was successful. But at the same time, too, you decide you want to leave when the ship is a little rocky. Now you want to leave and go to another school. So I don't know, but BJ is going to LaSalle, so that may be good for BJ going to LaSalle. Maybe he'll get a chance to be coached by another coach who could teach you something different.
When you found out, like you said, you knew a little bit earlier that Ron Patterson was leaving. We'll start with Ron. What are your thoughts on his decision to go? Because, well, maybe in an overall sense, not just Ron, but BJ too. Like you said, it's gotten a little bit rocky. Obviously, everything comes out with the NCAA sanctions. Jim Boeheim comes out. I think he had a great press conference, probably one of the best ones, if not the best one that he's done. He's there for his team. He's dedicated. He said, listen, I'm going to be here next year. 3 years is the outside window. So all the guys on the team between now and 3 years from now, Jim Boeheim would be with them to see them all through. None of them would lose him if he stuck around for the 3 years. So yeah, the boat was a little bit rocky, but Boeheim said, I'm going to be here for my guys. Ron Patterson, BJ Johnson said, that's good and dandy, we're leaving. What do you think about their reaction? Because everybody was wondering, is Boeheim going to jump ship? But two of his players ended up doing it.
Well, I tell you, I just think that, these guys are not even giving Boeheim an opportunity to stay in school so they can maybe have an opportunity to play, if not next year, the year after that. Well, no, Patterson is in his senior year next year, right?
Well, they have, right now, they would both have 2 more years.
And so I think for them leaving maybe be something that's maybe serious to them, because I'm sure every player that go to Division I college basketball want to have an opportunity to play professional basketball. Every one of them. So I just think it wasn't a good decision. It's not a good decision. And I think if Boeheim is going to stick to be with you guys, then you should feel the same way.
Some people have said, you look at the talent coming in, like I said, with Zhang and Richardson, Lydon, and Howard, that maybe BJ Johnson, Ron Patterson thought, we're going to be down on the depth chart. But in my mind, if you think that of yourself, why are you even playing basketball?
Well, it's probably good that you guys are transferring, then, if that's the case, if you think that way. If you don't think that we're going to be a good team for the next 2 or 3 years, then maybe it's okay that you leave it.
To go to LaSalle, it's in the A-10. It's a team that typically doesn't make the tournament unless they win the A-10 conference tournament. What do you think about BJ Johnson going to a school that obviously isn't the high profile of Syracuse, doesn't have the history of Syracuse, and he could potentially never see the NCAA tournament again? What do you think about his decision to go to LaSalle?
Well, I just kind of think that, you have to be careful of what school you're going to go to. You got to make sure you make the right decision. When I made my decision to go to Syracuse University, I knew that I wanted to play in the Carrier Dome, and I knew that I wanted to give myself an opportunity to play 4 years and get my degree and have an opportunity to get drafted to the pros. And fortunately, it did happen that way, and so God is good, and I was part of that 0%. And a lot of players are not part of that 0%, because that's a tough position to be able to, to try to give yourself an opportunity to play professional basketball when really you don't really have that kind of talent.
Depending on when you're watching this, I mean, things can happen at any time in the sports world, but as of right now, in this moment, we don't know where Ron Patterson's going. To switch now, after you have your players signed on, their national letters of intent are in, you know what your 2015 class is going to be, not only do we agree that it's a terrible thing for them to decide to transfer because of what it's going to do to them and their opportunities to play, but for Ron to do it now and to not have a school picked out, it seems like BJ kind of had something set up, but doesn't really seem like maybe Ron has something set up. So if you're him right now, would you kind of go back into Boeheim's office and say, wait a second, maybe I want to stay here?
Well, I think, again, considering the time that he played this year, he got a lot of running time. And I just thought that, for him to make that decision to give himself an opportunity to lose 1 year position, because where you going to go? Where you going to go that somebody's going to give you an opportunity to play? If you play after your second year when you go to a new school. So I think he, really should be smart about what he's doing and make a decision to stay at Syracuse. Because I think if Boeheim is going to support you for your years you're going to be there, why wouldn't you want to do that for him?
I was told from one of my sources on the inside with the basketball program that both of these, Ron Patterson, BJ Johnson, their decision to leave just days after Boeheim had his press conference, had quote-unquote nothing to do with the sanctions. I find that hard to believe. I want to trust, the person in there, but this is somebody inside the basketball program saying, listen, as far as we know, it had nothing to do with it. I don't buy it, though, that it had nothing to do, especially coming just a couple days after Boeheim's speech. What do you think? I mean, do you really buy into the fact that BJ and Ron are leaving because of wanting more time and that it doesn't have to do with the sanctions?
Well, I just kind of believe that, whatever kind of player you are, and if you have confidence in yourself that you can maybe play overseas, maybe not play professional basketball, why wouldn't you stay here? Why wouldn't you learn? Why wouldn't you be part of the process of those kids that are coming in there next year and helping them to become good, better players?
Right.
But I think that's a decision that he should make, and he still have 2 years left.
Tyler Roberson came in with Ron Patterson, BJ Johnson. As of right now, he's not going anywhere. No talk about him going anywhere. What can you say about his decision to stay when you look at the guys we just talked about? Having Tyler Roberson, in my mind, Syracuse is keeping the best of those three. Can you attest to that and say that you believe that as well?
Well, I hope it's that way, too, also. I just think that, Tyler should be able to everything he endured this year was tough. And it was some games where Boeheim didn't pay him to the second half. But Tyler's one of those kind of guys where he's going to learn, and then eventually, by the time he become a junior or senior, he's going to be the starting point guard. I just think that now is just not his time. He makes a lot of little mistakes, but I think he learns from his mistakes too also, because if you don't learn from your mistakes, then you're going to continue doing the same mistakes. And so I just think that he's going to be a good player eventually.
And with Roberson, I know you said point guard, but power forward, I think, was what you decided. Yes, right. But on his side, what have you seen in his growth and his ability? Obviously, we talked about his jump shot and how he seems to shoot at the basket, forward, kind of direct line, instead of shooting up and having that up over the rim where you actually utilize your wrist and utilize that part of it, which helps out your shot tremendously. Yes, he's had that issue, but we've seen him get after rebounds. We've seen double-doubles. We've seen him be tenacious inside. We've seen him be the reason why Syracuse has won some close games in the ACC. What are you taking away from Tyler Roberson? This was only his second year. This was his sophomore year that just passed. So what were you able to see from him?
Well, I thought he did pretty good this year. I thought when he did get in the games, he did do very well. I've been at practice, and I watched him at practice too also. He was a great jump shooter. I thought he was in practice. But, you know, I think what happens is sometimes when you get in game situation and, you know, things don't go how you want it to go, then what happens with that is that you got to kind of sit yourself back and just kind of take a look and see what you're doing, so you make sure you do what you need to do for the team. Not for what you're trying to do, but do it for the team, which is, I think, the most important.
Before we take our second break here from Cam's Pizzeria, Lemoyne Plaza, I want to thank Tony and his team for helping put this together with Dan Tortora Broadcast Media. To look at Tyler Roberson, Mike Gbinije, Trevor Cooney, leadership-wise, that's really what you have. I mean, Tyler's going into his third year, Trevor's going into his final year, and Mike Gbinije, because of his transferring, going into his final year as well. What can you say about the leadership of Syracuse when you think of those three guys, with the four coming in that you think so highly of and have reason to do so, a lot of people feeling that way? When you look at the leadership of those three, what can you say about the veterans that are going to be leading the team for 2015-16?
Well, I'm curious to see how that's going to work too also, because when you have these guys like Mike Gbinije come in from Duke, and you have other players that come in and next year that's going to be a senior, they have to be able to direct these young kids that's coming in next year who's going to be good players eventually. Do I know if they're going to be able to leave school after next year's? Who knows what's going to happen with that? But I'd be curious to see how that's going to work. This is why I think, you know, the two guys that's leaving shouldn't leave. They should stay at the school. I just think if Boeheim is going to give you an opportunity, I know I've said it over and over, to be here for the 3 years that he's going to be here, I think you guys should give him an opportunity and stay in school. Why bail out on him?
Big words, and I definitely agree with you. If Boeheim is going to stick this out, this man is 70 years old. He's won a championship. He's gotten to over 900 wins, depending on what's taken away, given back, and whatnot. He's done so much for Syracuse, and days after he shows his support for the team, two players don't show his support for him, and they end up moving on. We're going to take a break here from Cam's Pizzeria, Lemoyne Plaza. Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, live, Pearl, Washington, Syracuse Basketball. Great. And myself, Dan Tortora, will be back here to wrap things up with our third installment to take a look at who we think might be good inside for Syracuse. There's no Rakeem Christmas, and I think that needs to start getting talked about here, is where there's going to be a big gap in the center position. And we're going to look at our brackets, where Pearl and I, the only thing that makes me feel good about my bracket is where I made mistakes, so did you. So it makes me feel a little bit better. We'll be back here in just a few moments.